I've got a very interesting topic today. This is something we've covered extensively, but yet also something completely new. My guest today is a Crowdsource the Truth viewer named Alex. And Alex, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Alex is joining us today to give testimony about his firsthand experience stopping the first 9/11, September 11th, 1999. Isn't that right, Alex?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, you and I have had a previous conversation, and you had shared with me that you were working at a youth hostel in San Diego. I apologize. The name of the place keeps slipping my mind. What was it called?
At the time, it was called Ocean Beach International Youth Hostel, and you had to be an international traveler to stay there. So if you were an American, you had to have plane tickets to show international travel.
That's interesting. And so now it's been taken over, purchased by somebody else. People can see it here on Google Earth. It's certainly a colorful looking place. Oh, look at that. We're inside it, I think, on Google Earth with a photosphere. That's really interesting. So
Very
why don't
colorful.
you give us a little background.
It wasn't that way, but back then.
Right.
Back then, it just had flags of other countries up in the window above the porch. But
so give us some insight into what it was that occurred there. Your overall claim is that the guys who checked into this youth hostel were later identified as the hijackers who allegedly crashed a 767 or 737, whatever it was alleged to be, into the outer section of the Pentagon, something we've had many professional aviators and architects and engineers and various people tell us is not only totally implausible given the inexperienced alleged pilots, but actually aerodynamically impossible given the performance characteristics of such a commercial airplane. And we have spoken about the possibility that some other type of aircraft, or perhaps more likely a missile, is what struck the Pentagon. Alex, tell us what you know about these individuals who appeared there at the youth hostel while you were working there as, what were you, the front desk attendant?
yeah, it was office, front desk, check people in. I lived there as well, so I had a key for every room in the place. I kind of looked after people. The kitchen we locked after a certain time at night, and I would let people grab food and get out. You get to know people living there. So so when there's somebody there with extremely bad vibes such as these two, it sets off alarm bells. But actually, before I saw them in person, I was already alarmed. So Corey Steinhauer,
tell us who these two guys are.
Okay. So they are Nawaf al-Hazmi. He had a bit darker skin, and Khalid al-Mihdhar, and they are friends. They're Saudi guys, and the official story about them is that they arrived in the United States in January of 2000, and that's not true, and that actually connects to some really interesting aspects about this story, because they were supposedly deported after they were caught. And there's a lot of things. They were supposedly deported for the fake IDs. They were not punished for
wait a
the
minute
things
now.
stolen.
So let me slow you down.
Okay.
They checked in,
Sure.
and we're looking at sort of like a coffee shop. Is that the entrance of the hostel? There's a coffee shop there with like a candy store?
Well, back then it was white and blue, white with blue trim with international flags up in the front window. There's if you were facing the place, to the west, to your left, was a pizza shop, and then to the right is like this kind of mall, mini mall little area with an arcade and stuff like that. But so it's changed hands, and they've made it look more hippie-ish or whatnot. The whole front,
And these guys checked in, and you immediately noticed that they had IDs that seemed to you to be completely fake. Sorry, I was in the wrong spot. There's apparently a coffee shop next door.
Yeah, the pizza place probably changed hands. Yeah, it used to be Theo's Pizza Parlor, but yeah, I'm sure that business has changed by now. Okay, so my first experience with them, I did not personally check them in. Corey Steinhauer of New Zealand checked them in, and interestingly, this was his first day on the job. His brother Rob Steinhauer had worked there months previous. He had moved to Canada. He married a Canadian lady. Corey Steinhauer had been briefly trained at the Easy Job, for like half a shift beforehand. This is his first day on the job by himself, and interestingly, Bill Clinton was scheduled to be in New Zealand on 9/11 in 1999, and he was meeting with the Chinese president, which is certainly interesting. And this person, Corey, he seemed to be a nice person, but I suspect he's a plant. And because he was not appropriately alarmed, even after, the FBI had come and gone. So his emotions didn't seem to match what was occurring. And, but he had checked them in. And at this point, his cover of just being from a small town in New Zealand, was operating, and I wanted to believe that. And I said, Corey, why did you check these guys in? These are fake IDs. They were fake Moroccan driver's license. And this connects to a very interesting part of the story as well, but I don't want to get sidetracked. And, I said, why'd you check them in? These are fake. The IDs were both supposedly driver's license from Morocco. One of the main things is they didn't exactly match. And I was very in tune to fake IDs because of Special Air Service guy named Simon. That's not his real name. That used to work there, and I was friends with, and I actually was in a band with.
Doesn't it seem weird that these ex-special service guys are working at a youth hostel?
Yes, you could say that's probably not random. This is a person that was an elite military unit in the UK. He helped get refugees across borders. I learned a lot of things from him. We were close friends. I considered him a very good friend, and we'll just talk about this now. Previous to this, he had told me in one of our nights hanging out together, just me and him in my room. We were having some beers, but he told me that he had worked for the FBI. He had a friend in the FBI, and that they had hired him to get fake IDs. What he'd do is he'd go out and get a bunch of fake IDs and basically come back, throw them on a table, and tell them how he got them. And I suspect that they used his techniques to get these guys fake IDs. They told them where to go. And the reason, somebody like the FBI could just print up fake IDs themselves, but they needed plausible deniability. It's supposed to be just these two Arab guys from the desert, showing up in a foreign country, so it's got to look like they just did it themselves, right, is what I suspect.
So, but as someone sitting there at the front desk in this youth hostel, you see all kinds of driver's licenses and all types of IDs from around the world, and this just immediately struck you as being
alarmed.
Not a real ID. It's very interesting, Alex. I'm able to get inside of the businesses adjacent to this youth hostel with the Google Earth photosphere, but I'm not able to get inside the hostel itself. I'm able to get inside the sushi restaurant next door and the coffee shop on the other side, but even when I zoom right in and drop the little guy directly on the hostel, it's shifting me over to the right. It doesn't want me to see what is going on here with Google Earth.
That's too bad, because you could go in there, go upstairs, downstairs, and people could look at the doorways of the rooms we're talking about. But
well, maybe if I what's the website for this place? Or sorry, what was the original name of it?
Oh, well, the original name was Ocean Beach International Youth Hostel. Kind of a long name, but they wanted to make sure that people knew you were supposed to be an international traveler to be there.
Right. All right. Okay, so we see it here, USA Hostels of Ocean Beach. Let me see if I can get to its website. Here we go.
Interestingly, it was sold for $1.5 million, which seems quite low for that area.
Yeah.
And John Asher, the owner at the time, financed it himself from a trust he has, which is also interesting. And, you know, he had a connection with a bungalow, privately owned hostel in Pacific Beach, north of there. But I never knew him to have a close relationship with USA Hostels. But he financed it himself. He sold it for $1.5 million, which for that area, it's a block and a half from the beach. You know, it's a property with income. For that area, that seems quite cheap, and financed it himself. Curious
Yeah,
detail.
San Diego is an extremely expensive area. Just the amount of real estate that it's taking up. I mean, even if it's a dilapidated property, which I'm not suggesting that it is, this large of a space right there, you could crush that and put a restaurant there. It seems like it would be worth much more than $1.5 million.
Exactly. You could change it to a nicer hotel, restaurant, other things, and bring up the income stream. And he was very successful with stocks. He was, doing very well. I actually worked at his house a couple times, and it's possible. I'm not accusing him, but it's possible someone could be reimbursed through stock tips for, possible complicity. I'm not saying I know this, I'm going to get sued for slander. I'm saying I suspect it.
Let's not delve into speculation. Let's just stick to what you witnessed. So these two guys check in. You're immediately saying, hey, these are weird IDs, doesn't seem legitimate, and nobody else seemed to care or be alarmed by that. Now, this was 1999, so
yes.
It's 6 years after the initial bombing of the World Trade Center, and so you were sort of...
Yeah, interestingly, just as a side note, when I was in Sri Lanka in an airport, and a bomb had gone off in a melon the day before, and I was speaking to a couple Dutch travelers, and I said, wow, that doesn't happen in my country. And they said, yes, it does. A bomb just went off in the World Trade Center. So I was actually in Sri Lanka in a place where a bomb had gone off the day before when I heard about that. It's just a weird thing,
I'm looking here at the Telegraph. I just Googled Sri Lanka melon bomb, and it's unclear. It says, remarkable sequence of images shows a bomb going off. That doesn't look like an airport.
Well, is it the same, right around the same time? I mean, it would be within 24 or 48 hours of the original World Trade Center bombing, because
so that would be 1993.
That's how I first heard of it. If that's the correct year, then yes. I'm not an expert about that, but I know that there was a guy that... I'm sorry, my phone beeped. There was a guy that, the FBI had supply the people with explosives. And can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Getting a sound from my phone. The FBI wanted him to provide real explosives, and he wore a wire. People can research that, So there's a history to this.
Interesting. Seems to be not there on the internet, so we'll have to check that out. So you're hypersensitized to this notion that some sort of sketchy dudes are checking into the hotel there, to the youth hostel, with fake IDs. And obviously, as someone working in a hotel where unknown people are coming in, a fake ID would certainly be cause for suspicion.
Yes, I was immediately alarmed. I mean, it was the kind of thing... Well, I mean, most people probably don't have to experience something like this in their life, but, you feel like everything's vibrating, your whole internally, as soon as I saw those, I was shocked. I said out loud to Corey, I said, how did they get in this country? And, so I had a lot of the questions that after the 9/11 that unfortunately did occur, people were asking on the mainstream media, I had these questions back then, and that's... I was alarmed, and Corey was apparently, not alarmed, and I thought that was strange. But, it was supposed to be written off as he's from a small town in New Zealand. And to follow up on the initial check-in, I mean, I called the owner of the hostel that evening. It was after the sun had set, when it had quieted down a bit. And, you know, I raised my concerns about their fake IDs. I said I suspected them of being terrorists. He said we don't want to point any fingers, and he kind of blended this in with, he was concerned about getting too many noise complaints about people having parties in the back or things like that. And he said we don't want to raise a red flag on the business with the police coming there too many times. So he kind of tied it
more
into a
concerned with
previously...
raising a red flag than he is with the possibility that he might have terrorists staying there at the hotel. It's interesting.
So that's why I brought up the things about my suspicions about him. You know, it's not with, you know, there's strange attitudes that occurred at that time. You know, that go with that. I wouldn't just start. I don't want to think badly of people or point fingers, you know, as he said. But you know, I knew that this was real. I was very alarmed. I wasn't partying at this time. I was on a mission. You know, I had to do this. You know, I had to catch them. At first, I didn't know what I could do about it, and then travelers started leaving, and I heard that they were being stolen from. There's a slight delay in that information, but the first week, the stealing began fairly quickly. But just to jump back to before I knew they were stealing, when they first got there, the first time I actually saw them in person, they were standing to the side. There was a small little gathering of people, you know, having beers in this back patio area. They were standing to the side, which would be to, you know, towards the ocean to the west, and had their backs to this kind of newly put in canopy thing. And they were staring with absolute hatred at the people. And I was in the hallway by the back door, and I was kind of there were some English guys around me, and I was discreetly watching them, and I asked these English guys, look at these guys, they're terrorists or something, why are they here? You know, they got fake IDs. And I was like, why do they hate us? So that was like a phrase that the MSM repeated later too. You know, well, how'd they get in this country? Why do they hate us? Anyways, they saw me look at them, and I was trying to be careful, you know, but they saw me look at them, and they both glared at me like, you know, electroshock eyes, like the kind of people that look like mind control people, like the kind of like, you know, the people's eyes you see, like the shooter in Colorado who had his hair dyed, just in their eyes are all bugged out. They looked like that.
Right.
So,
and again,
I mean,
to not jump
alarmed.
to any kind of conclusions, any devout Muslim observing Westerners drinking beer and stuff might view that with disdain. So.
Yes, this was on another level of hatred. This wasn't just someone who kind of disapproved, you know. And they were, I mean, because it was an international hostel, of course, they were probably supposed to try to blend, but they weren't doing a good job, you know. Their hatred was visceral for me, you know. And that only confirmed it once I saw them in person, and they were rarely visible.
Okay.
But,
so what happened next? You've sent me a lot of photographs of different things here. Yeah. Sorry?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. A lot of those are to do with subsequent targeting that show that congressionally funded surveillance equipment is being used to commit violent crimes on me. Attempted assault, attempted assassination. You know, so this is evidence of COINTELPRO. You know, the names have changed. Targeting, but it's connected to cartels, the CIA, trafficking. You know, this starts to go into some really deep stuff, because when you're targeted by these guys, you connect a lot of dots. And I give you a lot of respect for doing this show, because a lot of people are probably afraid to approach this. It's not that I haven't been making efforts as of late, but some of those are to do with targeting. There's hitmen, you know, FBI associates wearing a wire trying to assault me. So you'll have to describe which picture.
I've got one right here of a guy. He's a white guy with very short haircut. Kind of looks like an alt-right haircut. It's kind of greased over on the top and shaved high and tight on the sides. Looks like he's got a gun on his belt. He's got like a police officer's utility belt, and he's holding a plastic bag, and he's wearing army boots. Yes,
and okay, so this person is a CIA asset. He's an assassin.
How do you know that?
And okay, well, I'll describe the story, but you have some 3 or 4 images. The silver SUV is his. And then there's another guy with a very short haircut who's Caucasian, and he's kind of doing a cowboy stance. with sunglasses on looking at me.
Yeah.
Those pictures all go together. It's all the same day. So I was in the D.C. area in 2018 for a lot of it, and of course there's a lot of spooks and all that around there anyways. And I mean, we could go into, there's so many incidences of things that occurred, you know.
So in Washington, D.C., this guy is walking around with an open carry. He's got a gun on his belt. He doesn't seem to be a police officer.
Exactly. It's illegal to not have shoulder patches, and he's obviously not undercover either. So this is what happened. There's a whole op that happened to us, and you know, we've struggled. You know, there's another witness and I. We struggled. We car camped at a Walmart in Manassas, actually. So we were getting targeted so bad. We're like, we got to go somewhere away from, you know, a little further from D.C. It's still probably considered D.C. area, but it's Virginia, and so they have all night to set up an op on you, and they know you're gonna have to go to the bathroom in the morning, all that, right? So I go in there and I asked the lady, hey, is there a bathroom in the back? Because the one in front was trashed. And I hear someone say, he's asked him out of the bathroom in the back. You know, so right away I know they're doing an op, right? And this guy said it quietly. And, you know, I'm not paranoid. I'm not afraid. Actually, unfortunately, I was used to this. So I got in the back, and when I came out, I have pictures documenting this whole sequence. But when I came out of the bathroom, there was two, you know, if you want to call them informants, they were criminals, but waiting there, they had a fake conversation. I pictured them. And then I knew stuff was going on, okay? But to make a long story short, on my way out on the exit, this person pictured there who, you know, he was hiding around a corner, okay? He never bought anything. He was hiding around a corner, and I had to pretend this whole time. I had to act like I didn't know they were doing this. That's a really good way to protect yourself, actually, because then they're gonna get loose. So I acted like I didn't even notice this, okay? And I'm walking out, and they have this whole situation controlled. There's no one else going out these doors, and in a Walmart, there's this contained area where there's two doors, you know, where you're going from the inside to the outside. He snuck up behind me, and I acted like the way I was walking.
Sorry,
I didn't
Alex,
know he was doing
this
it.
This is
Yeah.
the older guy you're talking about, who you've got him standing there. Just
He looks Arabic. He looks Arabic. He's posing as a law enforcement officer. Anyways, he tried to sneak up behind me. I ducked behind. It was like a vending toy machine, you know, they have in there. It's a big solid thing. I acted like I didn't know, and then I suddenly ducked behind that, and I took a picture of him coming at me. And
wearing a Walmart uniform?
No. That's a completely different incident. That's just another COINTELPRO thing. It's a guy swinging at a camera at me. There's people, like, if you go in a bathroom, they pound on the door, they threaten to call the police just because you're using the bathroom. I mean, it's outrageous. And that's what that... but back to the guy posing as a cop. He tried to get behind me. He claimed to be a law enforcement officer. It was already ruined because I was taking pictures of him, and I was ready for it. He showed me this badge it had this flap cut out in his wallet, so you can only see the little stars poking out. He goes, I'm a law enforcement officer. And I already knew you're supposed to have patches on your shoulders, and it's illegal. I already knew what this was. And I go, oh, really? And then, you know, I got him to show me the badge again, but he wouldn't let me take a picture of it, of course. But, you know, I got his plate, the silver SUV, that's his, you know. And, oh, by the way, at that time, as I'm exiting, there is actually, it's called Prince William County. I have other pictures I didn't give you, but Prince William County Fire and Emergency parked out at the gas station. They get gas from county depots. They don't buy gas at a gas pump, and they were pulled up at the gas pump right outside this exit in view. So this was a false flag type of op. They were going to kill me and do something, and they already had the fire emergency trucks there, and they were there the night before. There was a whole street theater event with them showing up behind us the night before we went to sleep. So this is very, very weird. And they do not get gas at gas stations. They go to a county depot for gas. And I have pictures of that as well, but I didn't want to overload you too much. But that
it's a little difficult
as a police officer.
Without you being able to see the pictures that I'm looking at. It's a little difficult to...
He's wearing an Under Armour. That guy's wearing an Under Armour shirt.
Yeah.
And he's got a gun, and he had a badge that he was hiding all the relevant details on the badge. So, for the same reason he didn't have shoulder patches. Later that day, this is about an hour and a half later, another guy, they were doing an op. I mean, they were desperate this day, and we can go into it, but he was trying to get up behind me. He had, I have more pictures of this, but there's a whole leg holster, and, he's got a gun inside, like if you reach in your front right pocket of the shorts, it's inside there. But he was trying to sneak up behind me, and, he ended up making a false complaint about me to the police, saying that I was following him and his family, which is totally outrageous, right? So he was trying to set up an excuse to why he had to shoot me in this park. And that was right after, this guy posing as a cop. So, I mean, these guys are relentless, man. This is real. And as far as, like, the guy if you have the picture of the guy with a Harvard shirt on, and he's wearing a ball cap, and there's a pen clip. That guy tried to assault me in a laundromat, and he's wearing a wire. You can see it in that picture.
Where can we see that?
So if you look at the Harvard T-shirt where the pin clip is, it's very obvious. There's other frames of this, but I mean, you can see there's a full-on post and the foam and the mic right under the pin clip sticking out. The upper one is a little camera. It had a tiny hole in it, but the mic, you can see two little posts going out under the pin clip. I mean, that's a really obvious wire. So.
Now, Alex, let me tell you this. There's a lot of
being used.
Hang on. There's a lot of skeptical viewers who are wondering if I have vetted you. Now, what I'll say is that you and I have had a previous phone call. You told me this story. You worked at this youth hostel, and I thought this was a story worth bringing to everyone. And for the people who think that your story is not credible, Alex is here for us all to vet. People seem to be confusing Crowdsource the Truth with CNN and the New York Times. I do not have a bullpen filled with researchers who vet every guest. Now, that's not to say...
People are welcome to research this.
Right. It's not to say that I bring on any old person and put out any story, but it's impossible, of course, for me to vet what Alex is telling us. I wanted him to share his story with everyone so we can put it through this crowdsource process and people can check what he's saying. Now, I do have some questions, Alex, that are reasonable questions for skeptical people to have. Now, these two guys came in, and it was 1999, so of course, pretty unlikely that you would have a camera in your cell phone at that time. People need to remember that the iPhone didn't come out until 2006, and it was, although they may have been available in 1999, it was more of a rarity to have a cell phone with a camera. So you don't actually have pictures that you've taken of these guys. These are just sort of pictures that you've downloaded of them from the internet. So we are sort of taking your word for it that you saw these two.
Well, for one thing, I mean, I'm not going to disclose anything that the deep state doesn't know if I have or not. So I'm not going to answer that.
Okay. But if you've got something that you're keeping to yourself, isn't that more dangerous than releasing it here and letting everybody know what it is that you've got? Because a lot of people are going to question this kind of story.
I'm not going to say that I am. I'm not going to confirm that I am keeping anything to myself either.
Okay. So you've got some pictures that you took of a guy in a hoodie, a black guy standing here talking on his cell phone. What is this guy all about?
Well, this is just a display of the COINTELPRO targeting. Basically, that person tried to assault me. It's on. I actually have two angles of video of this attempted assault, but.
How do you have two angles of video of it?
Well, but he had a police antenna on the back of his car. There's a close-up of that, and he knew already what room we were in. And we just got a storage unit, and the unit number was 321, and we happened to get room number 321. Looks like a psyop, right? And then
why does 321 look like a psyop? Because it's 1, 2, 3 in reverse?
Well, because you let's say it's just, you could say it's a coincidence. Maybe it is. But I went and rented a storage unit right before this, not that day, but right beforehand, and and then I go rent a hotel room, and it's the exact same number. Kind of weird.
Really? That is weird.
Yeah, that's why there's a picture of those two things, the key and the storage unit number.
Public storage,
Yeah.
right. Wow.
They do this all the time. I mean, let me just say this. They do crazy stuff. So if you talk about it to the uninitiated, you look crazy, And this whole situation, the whole system's rigged on this. You can't, complain to the same people doing it to you, It's organized. There's organized crime connections to this all over the place, but anyways, that guy, he tried to assault me. He had a police antenna. The picture of the police car that followed us to the side as we left that hotel has the same antennas. He just has two of them on the back. That's what that sheriff's, vehicle is meant to display. So you see the same antennas. And that was, from leaving that same hotel. He tried to assault me. You can see in the picture he's looking up at our room. How would he know what room we were even in, It was at an extended stay in Leesburg area. Anyways, so that's what that's meant to display. Something that definitely needs to be mentioned about the two terrorists, Nawaf al-Hazmi, Khalid al-Mihdhar, is that the day, so let's go back to, the actual 9/11/1999.
Right.
Well, they checked in 2 weeks beforehand. Okay, we'll try to condense the story. When I called John Asher back, I said, I know they're stealing. I know it's them. He went to the whole, we don't want to point any fingers. And he had hinted at, and this time he directly threatened me being employed and living there. And, I made just over $200 a week. I had no other place to go. I didn't have anyone to help me, friends, family. So everything for me as a young man was on this, riding on this. And I didn't know everything then, and I don't know everything now, but I was dedicated to this. And also the people, when they're getting stolen from, there's an emotional component. I mean, I identify with these. They're young travelers,
Yeah.
Anyway, so when I called him back and said, I know it's them, he said, we don't want to point any fingers, we don't want the red flag, and he more directly threatened my employment, okay? I thought that was very weird, but it didn't deter me. I was still dedicated to catching them. And what I realized is that they're watching me, and they know that I'm trying to catch them. So I had to solicit other help to help catch them, and that's really what did it, because I couldn't do it by myself completely. I needed someone else as a lookout. And I'm not going to say that person's name because they are a witness, and I don't want to put them in any danger. But what ended up happening was, so on 9/10/1999, it was a Friday, and me and this person had a discussion about catching them. They're stealing again. Okay, so this is an interesting note as well. When I called John Asher and I said they're stealing, and I know it's them, the stealing afterwards, you could say it's a correlation, of course, but it did stop. And near the end of the second week, it had resumed again. And then this is where I'm talking about it with this other person I enlisted to help me. And I said, I have long hair. They think I'm going to be up late partying. It's Friday. They've been watching. They know I'm trying to catch them. It's not going to happen unless I have help. He agreed to do this. And, he knew that this was very serious as well. We did not think that this was just ended with petty theft. And, okay, so there's certain things I'm not going to discuss about exactly everywhere I was, exactly what I said about on the 911 call, because that call should be public knowledge. And when I hear that call back, I don't want anything to be altered. No information removed. Okay. So
how do we get that 911 call? Did you send that to me?
Okay. Well, this is the thing, like, there's certain aspects of this I didn't want to look up, because I don't have, my constitutional rights are not respected. So if I look something up online, somebody might go and try and scrub it. You know what I mean? We need Paul Revere's to come, and you being one of them, I mean, to go forward and push for this, because this is a publicly available phone call unless there's a conspiracy.
Well, is this the thing that you sent me from KPBS?
Well, that is an article detailing the official story about the connection to San Diego and the 9/11 hijackers.
Got it.
And what is interesting to note is that they were supposedly deported for the fake IDs I caught them with, but how could they have been deported in September of 1999 and then already in January 2000? They're back in San Diego, okay? And they met this Omar al-Bayoumi, and he helped them find an apartment in Claremont, and that guy was getting money from a Saudi contractor. And before he met them, he was getting $465 a month. And after he helped them, he was receiving $3,700 a month. So he was an intermediary.
How do you know they were receiving that money?
Well, this is official information. You can read it right on the KPBS.
Got it.
Yes. But this is also why that they were stealing beforehand, was to hide things like this, but it didn't work. And this.
So you're saying they were stealing to hide that they were receiving money?
Well, with something like this, the people need money to carry it out, to live on, and anyone, let's say somebody wired them money, it's going to cause all these connections, right? So petty theft was just a way to hide the basic, amount of money, and they were planning on destroying that building. There was no hazmat warning given, so the witnesses would have been dead, and you have to have that in context. They thought they were going to do this.
We forgot a major component of the story that you told me on the phone. In the hotel room that these guys had, there was a very strong chemical smell that indicated that there was a bomb in there or something. Let's discuss that.
Yes, and this was commonly known among witnesses that a bomb was in the room. People were very afraid, and most of the people that were, that had been stolen from, they just leave. They're a young traveler. They got ripped off. Their parents tell them to get out of there or whatever. But there were witnesses, and even 6 months later, we still could not rent out this room. Why? Because even though it had been cleaned several times and repainted over, which arguably should not have been done without hazmat gear on or something, it didn't make any difference. It still burned your eyes, your sinuses, your throat, your lungs. I mean, it was visceral. You could not. If you were standing in that room, your body was telling you, get out of this room. And even 6 months later...
Was there news reporting on the bomb in the room?
No, this was covered up, and that's why this needs to be exposed, because it's new information for most people.
Yeah, because when I Google Ocean Beach Youth Hostel bomb, we get nothing. So
you're not going to get a news story about that. Yeah, Meet the Sharma isn't talking about it. Their story picks up in January of 2000. Obviously, they were never deported. The FBI never interviewed me, which violates standard investigative procedure because of my efforts. If I didn't do what I did, this place would have blown up. I would have died. Other people would have died, and the chain reaction with the multi-tiered attack would have occurred. It's just the reality. I'm not trying to look cool. It's just the truth. I mean, people can check the facts. That was the owner. I was there. There was witnesses. And by the way, this is such a well-known story that another witness and I, that wasn't there in 9/11, but he's witnessed other things, 9/11/99. We went back there in 2004, and I just popped in, and this young guy, he had light brown hair, I'll say that. And he invited me to sit in the office with him because I used to work there, right? And I just started to mention that I got some terrorists deported. Right, but they weren't really deported, but, obviously. But I mentioned that, and I had gotten halfway through the sentence, and he goes, "That was you?" And he was looking at me a lot different after that. So this was word of mouth, common knowledge from witnesses at the time, and the owner, may have, bragged about it, but he never thanked me when I was there, and I wasn't really welcome there for very much longer after that, and that just goes in a whole other, area of the targeting. But, it's very strange. Very strange. But it was commonly known there was a bomb in the room. No hazmat warning was given. FBI violated standard investigative procedure. I'm not going to say certain details. The FBI don't know if I interviewed these guys. They don't know a lot of things, so I can't really talk about it. But what I will say is that the materials probably didn't go out the front door, which means they did have a key to the back door. You had to have an employee key, and they have a professional lock picks and everything as well, but I doubt they use that for this. So the materials are not taken out the front door. Also, during my shift, those terrorists, weren't hanging out and everything, right? And they didn't go out the front door, so they didn't flee the scene out the front door, and they were in the building. So, and no local police ever arrived, okay? And the
Did you
lady
call
who
the
answered
police and tell them there was a bomb?
911. I can't discuss what the phone call was exactly because like I said, I want to make sure I get the accurate recording, and I can't discuss the chronology of the bomb knowledge or anything. But basically, I called 911 on 9/11, 1999. When I met this other person, we were at a meeting time of 5:15 down by the office in the front door. These doors were locked and stuff at this point, and I was a few minutes late, and that's a good thing because he was a lookout for a while before that, and we suspected that they would do this more earlier in the morning, but they actually didn't do this until people would be getting up. What they would do is the doors didn't automatically lock, so someone would go up and use the shower or use the bathroom, and meanwhile they left this dorm room open, and then these guys were so brazen they would go in and steal cash, video cameras. And that's how brazen these people were. But anyways, the local police never showed up, even though this lady was very professional. Obviously, I was very on high alert during this time. So when I met him, it was probably 5:18, right? And sunrise hadn't happened yet. It was dark. But there was that tiny little bit of, light hitting the upper atmosphere, so it wasn't pitch black. Anyways, he took off. And but the local police never showed up. I called back, and they said, just sit tight, they're on their way. And my whole 8-hour shift began and ended, and the FBI didn't show up until Corey Steinhauser was on shift, just like the terrorists did, same MO. I mean, Corey's on shift, the terrorists show up, they knew I was suspicious, they knew I was basically doing a citizen investigation, trying to catch these guys. And, they waited for Corey to be on shift, and, they never showed their badges to Corey or other witnesses. My friend Simon is his name that we'll use. He had left on a contract to teach anti-terrorism techniques around the world, like to elite military units like Belgium, Peru, right? And
I just find it so strange that these elite military guys are working at a low-cost hotel.
Yeah, well, it's to watch. You could say it's to watch, international travelers coming and going, and also you have to think also they had him doing a job already, finding how to get fake IDs. And he told me some techniques that I would never use, and I wouldn't want to tell people how to do that. But yeah, he had left on that contract. So it's interesting he was pulled away on an anti-terrorism contract right before this, because we were close friends, and he definitely wouldn't have liked these guys, and I would have consulted him. So I definitely believe they used his techniques for the IDs without his knowledge. I firmly believe that. Anyway, so he's not a conspirator, but he came back. But there's a lot of weird things to this. So he came back in the middle of this contract specifically to see me. So he's getting paid, and people were surprised he came back just to see me, And we were talking. He confirmed they're FBI. I'm not going to misquote him just offhand, but he confirmed they were FBI. He confirmed involvement. I'll say that. He confirmed they were interested in me. So there was a bit of a, like a warning, but as a friend, stuff like that. And I mean, he came back to see me and he left again, and he was half Native American, half Irish. He had worked, anti-terrorism as far as, Northern Ireland, putting like GPS trackings in the butts of guns or explosives, see where they go, stuff like that, And he came back just to see me. We hung out. He left. But he filled me in on some things that were, interesting details, I suppose. And, but, we had a lot of conversations previous to this. And I haven't seen him again since either. So, and he was half Native American. He invited me to meet his Native American elders and stuff. But I hope he's okay,
Okay. So there's a few more pictures that you've sent me here. There's a picture of a young woman holding a newspaper talking about Trump attack.
Oh.
What is this?
Oh, yeah. So, okay, there's a lot of details to all this. So Kate Mazzuchetti, she supposedly saved the president's life, okay? She contacted me. She found me on Twitter. And I don't really follow Q, but I guess he said something about her. I have never actually looked at the post, but I know from my experience what I know about her and certain things I've been told from certain people. But basically, she's a cabal plant. She pretended that she was going to help. She was helped save the president in this totally sloppy story. And some guy is in prison now for what she said. He was trying to assassinate the president, and it's suspected that she was going to try and hug him. Anyways, and also Peter Strzok in his hearing, the Russian Russian ministry put out information about Kate Mazzuchetti that Peter Strzok in his hearing to Congress, that's why it says Kate on his Coke bottle. That's what the Russian ministry says, Russian ministry report. People can look that up. It's probably still online. But that was meant to signal something to her, and
wow.
She, yes. And I mean, this connects in a lot of ways. I mean, Andy McCabe's brother was calling me, Neil McCabe, but that's for OAN News. Yes, and they wanted to meet with me. And this was back in D.C., last year. And, I didn't meet with him. I said no. But they wanted to meet with me, and he called me a couple of times. I mean, there's a newsroom. You can hear a newsroom in the background. And believe me, I want to get this story out, and I commend you personally big time. But I'm not going to meet with Andy McCabe and Neil McCabe, because when he said, will you meet with us, I suspected it wasn't just for journalistic reasons. And you could say maybe he's quite a bit different from his brother, but I'm not taking that chance, So Andy McCabe's brother wanted to meet with me, and I think he would have been there,
Uh-huh. So people are questioning your story here, Alex.
Okay, well, what questions do they have?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm trying to get to that. So Kelly is watching on Periscope, and she asks, are you working for the military like the rest? And she feels that she knows that this is total BS.
It's not BS.
Okay.
But so her question, as far as the part that, there seems to be, basically projecting doubt, but the question is, am I working for the military? And the answer is no, but the military is well aware of this situation. And, I've been notified of that. And this is in the past, but also more recently, General Flynn does have my 9/11/1999 document. It does have some typos. I added some information at the end fairly recently. You'll have to forgive me. It was typed on a phone.
Do I
in the
have
back
that
seat of a
document?
car.
Did you send me that?
I copied and pasted it and emailed it to you. And I usually on Twitter I post it as screenshot images because you can't fit that in a tweet.
Right.
But General Flynn has that document.
Let's do this. Let's allow people, or if you want to, I can show your Twitter page and people can ask you questions directly. How do we find you on Twitter?
My Twitter address is at AWB555. So that's Alexander William Britton.
I wasn't going to say your phone
AWB555.
name, but there you go.
And you can ask me whatever you want as long as you have a legitimate interest. This is a real thing. I don't have anything to hide about it. I'm not James Bond. This connects in so many ways to human trafficking, CIA, Zantop Airlines, the Clinton Global Foundation.
Let's
Black
talk
Ops
about
funding.
that Zantop Airlines, the Clinton Foundation, Zantop Airlines.
Yes.
That would be interesting.
Let's do it.
Talk about Zantop. What is Zantop Airlines?
Well, Zantop Airlines is a freight airline. It's a CIA airline. And that's what Uranium One was delivered on. And that went out of the United States in Ypsilanti, Michigan at Willow Run Airport. Uranium One, that's where it flew out on. And Zantop Airlines was owned by Sharon Zantop, was the real owner. She let front people take care of a bunch of the stuff. It was an arranged marriage, really, with my dad, and that's how stuff like this is really controlled.
So wait a minute. So the owner of Zantop Airlines was married to your father, Sharon Zantop?
Correct.
So you've got to. I mean, again, you're bringing out things that you've told me that I wasn't going to bring up. But so your father worked for the CIA. You're telling us.
Yeah, I suspected it for a long time, and you know, there's things like, you know, you go in his closet and he had this micro tape, you know, and you listen and you're like, this is corporate espionage, you know. But I've had it confirmed, certain things confirmed. Oh, there's just so much to this. But I've been told his signature was seen on arms on delivery to Kazakhstan, and you know, he invented a way to make engines several decibels quieter, okay? And now think about human trafficking, freight airlines, okay? He invented, this patent worth very much money, okay? And his name is not on the patent, and he invented it because he did it work for hire, and this was sold to Europeans, and they made the airline engines.
What's the name of the patent?
I don't have the patent number offhand. I'll have to follow up with you.
What does the patent do?
It makes airline engines a lot quieter. And that has to do with planes flying in, you know, and landing places, dropping things off, loading things on, and leaving again.
Aircraft engine noise suppression? H. True and R. Fitzsimmons?
I can't see it, so I don't want to, misquote the patents. I'll have to go back to it. For me, it's firsthand. I mean, I was told about this in person when I was a young man. So,
is it held by Zantop Airlines?
No. There's German names on it now. He sold it because otherwise he would just get what he told me, just work for hire. He did this. He invented it. He would only get money work for hire. So he must have had help from other engineers as well that knew about this enough, because this Modern Tool and Die company, you know, did not have the patent. So they sold it. And there's this Mr. Pym character. He's a billionaire. He was at the house. There was some kind of business deal, okay? I met Mr. Pym. I guess, you know, I don't know this from firsthand experience. I'm not a black ops guy, okay?
Just take a breath. Take a breath, Alex.
Black.
Hang on.
Yeah,
hang on.
he's
Calm
a black
down a second. Just let me tell you this. I want you to calm down. I'm not trying to disprove what you're saying. I just want to get as much of this information out. We're starting a process here, right? You've come to me with a story that is intriguing. You say these guys checked into the hotel. I do agree that there's some slightly strange things about this hotel, given the fact that the adjacent businesses offer these photosphere tours of their interiors, and this one does not, coupled with the fact that you're telling us all these things about it. It's got this giant peace symbol on the top of it right now. There was a news article speaking about the sale of it, so I think your information is interesting and intriguing. I will say, and this isn't any kind of, please don't take this as a hostile statement, but the way Crowdsource the Truth works is that if someone does want to come here with a false story, the idea is that the crowdsource viewers will vet it out and determine that it's false. So I'm not saying that I have any knowledge of your story being true or false. I'm just saying you've presented it to me. I thought the audience would find it intriguing and that people would want to investigate it, and that's what we're doing. This is the first time you've been on, and I expect it won't be the last. But this is how we do it.
I can't say everything in an hour.
Right.
Yeah, I can't say everything in an hour. That's why I started getting excited. There's a lot of ways this connects. It's
Well, don't
very interesting.
Don't get worked up. I mean, we'll talk about this some more. I think the Zantop Airlines aspect of it is extremely interesting for people. Yeah.
Clinton Global Initiative. She was a contributor, and she contributed to Bill Clinton's campaign. She knew
Sharon
them.
Zantop was.
Yes, she told me personally that people know that that charity. It's not done for benevolent reasons, let's say. And she told me that. This is how it works. They try to hire you in. They wanted me to work for that airline. They would have ended up setting me up. But she told me that. And there's another connection to Clinton Global Initiative down the road. This is in Vegas, but another guy that works with Bill Gates' brother. He's a business partner, at least was at that time. And there was an app. This guy wanted to hire me too. And there was an app where you dial in the equalization and sound for people's specific devices to optimize the sound. When they bought that app, 15% of the purchase price was offered to go to a charity, okay? Clinton Global Initiative was mentioned, and he told me that very little of the money goes to charity. So that's two direct connections to Clinton Global Initiative. Both times, coincidentally, they're trying to hire me,
Right.
This is how they try to bring you in,
So let me ask you this,
connects
because
in a lot of ways.
when I Google Sharon Zantop, Bill Clinton, the second thing that comes back is a tweet from Michael Moore of True Pundit, and it's linking to something about Jenny Moore.
And what does that say? Yeah, she's dead, and she was investigating this. I met her in Fairfax.
So you've met Jenny Moore. You've met Task Force.
Yes, on 7. I think it's 7/7/18 was the day I met her. She interviewed me. She knows I'm not lying, and
you're not the guy. You're not the guy who alleges to be raped by Bill Clinton, correct?
No, she had just interviewed that person, so she was just doing heavy work right then.
Did you meet that person?
No. And
there's other more.
Yes, and there's very suspicious aspects of her autopsy. She did not weigh 200 pounds. I hugged her, So there's just some very suspicious things about her autopsy. And I don't want to go, get accused or get sued or something, but it's definitely something going on there. And these people are very sophisticated. They will exploit health weaknesses, everything. They're very slick. So I wouldn't put it past that she was murdered.
How old would you say Sharon Zantop is?
Well, she'd be in her late 70s probably by now.
And is she from Idaho? Is her middle name Lee?
Well, she was Miss California.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah. Well, there's variations of a lot of these people vary their names a lot. There's going to be information that's scrubbed online, but you'll be able to find things. They had a contract with the Air Force, so they could fly right out of Michigan, right over Canada. Nobody's going to ask any questions. But this was her meeting my dad was arranged by this billionaire, by powerful people, and him inventing this airline. This patent, and then meeting her, that's not random. They wanted me to work for the airline. I have it confirmed from multiple sources. Uranium One was in fact delivered on that, and people are, definitely be careful, and people helping me with this are being warned to back off, So this goes into some pretty hot stuff.
So it seems like 1963, the Miss America beauty pageant has got a Sharon Lee Zantop as a semifinalist from Idaho. Does that sound right?
Okay, there you go. My dad said, she was Miss California, so that's how I know. Okay, so maybe she was a semifinalist, and maybe she lied to him and exaggerated, but yeah, there you go. Yep, that's her, and some of her family was murdered. I found that out, not that long ago, from a person helping with some research. But
Miss America
they were
1963. I wonder when in 1963 that took place. September 8th, 1962 was the date of the pageant, it seems, according to the internet here.
Yeah,
It was in Atlantic City.
we didn't discuss it in detail. That it was just kind of an anecdote thing to kind of sell me on her. She was a very wicked, very cold person. Very.
Is she still alive?
To my knowledge, yes.
And when's the last time you spoke to Sharon Zantop?
Oh, that's an interesting detail, actually. This was a while ago, but so after I stopped the terrorist attack, all that kind of stuff, I wasn't really welcome at the hostel anymore, which is pretty odd, save the guy's building. But I moved to Hawaii. This is interesting. So I was helping a physicist do imagery to show his ideas, visualizations, and to help get investors, which he already had investors, but he wanted absolute freedom. His name was Marco Rodin. Anyway, so I moved there, just kind of on a limb. I was still a pretty young guy, and to help with this project. And when I was there, my dad had just divorced this lady. She tried to take the house I grew up in. There's this whole scandal with that, which is strange because she has her own money. I mean, she spent like 15 grand on this like wooden giraffe carving. These people had cash. I don't think it's on the books. But she called me. I'm in Kauai, Kaloa, Kauai. And she called me, and I was surprised. And one of the things she said is she always felt like she had more in common with me than my dad. I thought that was pretty weird.
Your dad's last name, obviously not Zantop.
No, Britton, Britton.
Who is David Zantop? Do you know David Zantop?
Well, I hadn't met him in person, but that's, some of her family were murdered, and I'm sure it has to do with some of this stuff, and I heard about that well after the fact when someone brought it to my attention. But
at Dartmouth College, is that it?
As far as her, I don't want to. I'm not super familiar with her extended family, so I don't want to confirm that because I can't say that for sure. But Mr. Pym was at our house about this business deal. There's a Rolls Royce in the driveway, and my dad meeting Sharon Zantop was arranged. And they basically told me that the first time they went out together, they didn't get on very well. But the people who arranged this pushed it, and they went out again. And there was like what sounds like a contrived small accident to kind of get them. Basically, they had this fake romantic story about how they had a fender bender with a car in front or something, and she flew forward and he caught her. It sounded kind of contrived to me. Went with the whole thing being arranged in the first place. And but uranium-1 isn't the only thing that they delivered, and officially, I mean, they're delivering stuff for the Motor City, engine parts, stuff like that, things for the Air Force, stuff like that. But freight airlines, I mean, you got to think it's a lot more covert than driving a truck full of people or drugs. As long as you know where you're going to land it safe and you have immunity while you're in flight, it's a pretty slick operation. And that lady, Sharon Zantop, her and my dad did come to the San Diego hostel in the summer of 1999. And she's a Clinton Global Initiative contributor. Clinton on 9/11/99 was in New Zealand. There's a guy from New Zealand as a plant checking these guys in, stuff like that, there to receive the FBI.
Right.
So there's a lot of weird connections.
There's a lot of stuff. Absolutely. There's a lot of stuff. There's an article here from the Daily News from 2014 about two professors at Dartmouth, one named Half Zantop and one named Suzanne Zantop, who were apparently murdered.
There you go. That's it.
What kind of name is Half?
And I don't... Yeah. Well, these people, I mean... Look, I mean, they'll put things like an extra R in the middle. Like Sharon Zantop, I've seen her put an extra R in the name, not one R, two R's, all that. They do stuff with their names. It's weird, So yeah, I don't know what kind of name that is. It's probably just made up, I mean, they obviously were tying up a loose end with that, you know.
Well,
So Zantop Airlines, they did arms, U-1, human trafficking, drugs. That's my suspicion, let's say.
That's speculation.
U-1
on your
I've had
part.
confirmed. Yeah, if I would have worked for them, they would have set me up. I mean, you know, so I don't have any. I'm not complicit, you know.
Okay. Let's do this, Alex. I think there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people watching us right now who I think are intrigued by what you've brought forward, and people can look into all of these things that you've said. You and I will remain in contact, and perhaps we'll have you back on to talk about some more of these elements. We're a little bit over our time here. Was there anything that you wanted to say before we close out for today?
Yeah, I would just like to quote Ted Gunderson. He used to be head of the Southern California FBI. He is poisoned. He's deceased now. But he said the first 9/11 was stopped in 1999 in San Diego, California. It was 2 terrorists deported for fake IDs. The FBI was involved. They came back 2 years later better prepared. And he was referring to the cabal people behind the scenes when he said saying they in that last sentence.
Wow. So he's referring to you thwarting this terrorist attack by alerting authorities.
Yes, if I didn't do that, it would have happened. That's just how it is. You know, people, I'm not trying to look cool. You know, that's how it happened. And I've gone through a lot. I don't regret it because, you know, hopefully this comes to light soon. You know, and everybody at the Paul Revere that helps with this, call your congressman, do research, share information. You know, we need Paul Revere's.
Wow. Wow. That's really something else. Well, people can definitely look into that Ted Gunderson quote. Alex, thank you for coming on the show. To everyone who has questions about what you're saying, we certainly welcome people to review this evidence, and perhaps you've dropped some hints and clues that are going to allow people to find some information that was previously unknown. So really appreciate you coming on the show, Alex, and I will speak to you again soon. Coming up at 5 o'clock, Charles Ortel will be here. We're closing in on the Clinton Foundation. I'll let him know about Zantop Airlines and Sharon Zantop, and we'll see if we can find any connections there. Alex, thanks very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Have a great afternoon.
You too. Goodbye.